Okay, picture this. It looks exactly like potpourri. It smells kinda like incense, but you're actually looking at a high-stakes cat and mouse game hiding in plain sight, right at your local gas station. You've probably walked right past these brightly colored packets 100 times. They usually have this very specific all-caps warning printed on them. Not for human consumption. But what's actually hiding inside that innocent-looking packaging is, frankly, a chemical time bomb, just waiting to go off.
And we're not talking about some cheap, watered-down knockoff here. These substances are engineered in clandestine labs to be up to 100 times more powerful than the illegal drugs they're trying to imitate. 100 times. That staggering multiplier is exactly what makes them so incredibly lethal.
So let's dive into the bath salts explosion and how it escalated into a full-blown medical crisis.
To really grasp how crazy this got, you just have to look at the absolute chaos that hit emergency rooms between 2010 and 2011. Calls to poison control centers for substances labeled as bath salts didn't just, slowly tick up. They completely exploded. We're talking going from a mere 304 calls to over 6,000 in a single year.
And no, we're obviously not talking about Epsom salts for a relaxing bubble bath. These lab-made compounds, stuff with names like MDPV and mephedrone, they literally hit the brain like meth, cocaine, and ecstasy all rolled into one wildly unpredictable package. Just a single dose can trigger extreme agitation, severe psychosis, and even death. And the craziest part? For years, they sat perfectly legally on shelves next to chewing gum and cigarettes.
So, you're probably asking yourself the exact same thing I did. How on earth is this perfectly legal, right? How could something that causes immediate psychosis be purchased over the counter without breaking a single law?
Which brings us to the legal loophole explained, and how these chemists managed to stay exactly one atom ahead of the law. Well, the answer lies in a massive, frankly terrifying blind spot that allows overseas chemists to totally outsmart the government. Back in 1986, the Analog Act was passed to ban substantially similar drugs. Sounds pretty airtight on paper, right? But here's the catch. They completely failed to legally define what substantially similar actually means in the realm of chemistry. They basically wrote a law without a scientific backbone. So here is how that loophole plays out in the real world. It's basically a bizarre game. Step 1, the DEA identifies and bans a specific chemical compound. Step 2, these clandestine chemists just tweak one molecule or swap out a single atom on that newly banned chemical. And then step 3, bam, a brand new, entirely unregulated and completely legal drug hits the shelves. We are literally constantly one step behind.
And that creates what is essentially legislative whack-a-mole, leading us to the terrifying danger of the hotspot.
This never-ending game of whack-a-mole creates some unprecedented physical danger for the people using this stuff. Think about a naturally occurring plant versus these synthetic versions like spice or K2. Manufacturers take shredded, dried leaves and just spray them with these newly invented, lab-made chemicals. But that spray is incredibly uneven, meaning one bag might do absolutely nothing to you, while the very next bag contains a highly concentrated, fatal hotspot.
And because of those hotspots, ears just started filling up with patients trapped in a state called excited delirium. People become highly violent, their bodies dangerously overheat, and they actually exhibit such unimaginable strength that doctors have to use massive doses of tranquilizers just to keep them from hurting themselves or others while they ride out the high.
Now, let's fast forward to the modern synthetic threat and how a loophole was essentially reopened.
Because if you think the whole bath salt and spice craze was just a problem from a decade ago, unfortunately the issue has stubbornly evolved. You have the 1986 Analog Act flaw, which led directly to the 2010 bath salt explosion. But most shockingly, in 2018, the Farm Bill accidentally created a massive, brand new loophole for synthetic cannabinoids. And now, we're looking toward 2025, as Congress is scrambling all over again to implement new synthetic bans.
Right now, today, the specific threat is the massive rise of products like Delta-8 and THCO. Since they were accidentally legalized under that 2018 Farm Bill, Congress is currently rushing to set a 4 milligram cap by 2025 to try and stop the spread. But if there's one thing we've learned, it's that history proves every single time a legislative door closes, these chemists will just find another way in.
Before we wrap up this explainer, I do want to share this. If you or someone you know needs help with substance use, please use the resources available like the SAMHSA National Helpline. The absolute biggest takeaway here is do not become a lab rat in an unregulated, potentially deadly experiment just because a package happens to be sold at a brightly lit convenience store.
So I want to leave you with this final critical thought.
Just because the law hasn't quite caught up to the chemistry yet, does being legal actually mean being safe? If the only thing keeping these substances on the shelf is a swapped atom and a legal blind spot, you really have to ask yourself, what else is hiding in plain sight at your local store right now?